So, welcome back to another episode of Once Upon a Time in Texas. I believe this is episode number 74, but I'm not entirely sure. So, you guys are finding me a little different because, to be real frank, I totally forgot to do my podcast before I left to go out of town for a few days. My family and I are heading to Red River, New Mexico. By way of Philmont. We're going to go do some ATV riding, but last night we stayed in a little Airbnb in a little tiny town called Channing, Texas, and everybody kind of said, "Channing? You know, what on earth are you doing there?" And pretty much it was the only Airbnb for miles and miles and miles, and I did not realize that it was basically the general headquarters for the XIT Ranch back in the day. Now, for those of y'all that don't remember, the XIT Ranch was put together in the 1890s, totaling 3 million acres, which is just crazy amounts of land. And so I decided to get out for a walk last night with my wife, and I said, well, that's kind of a cool looking old building there. And so we go over there and we get to looking, and it's the courthouse. And she said, well, I wonder if they're still using that courthouse. And we looked it up, and sure enough, they still are. It's a cool, small little courthouse with the jail and everything right next door to it. And got to see the old XIT General Land Office, which is still here, still in existence. And yeah, just super cool. Even met a guy named Frank Davis, who was the superintendent of schools out here for like 25 years. Basically met him and his wife because their dog that they have named Hey, because she is reminded of they were reminded of the chicken off of Moana, and the chicken's name was Hey. And so anyway, super cool. And so I wanted to share with y'all about Channing, Texas and the XIT Ranch. And yeah, so pretty cool piece of history. You ought to look that up. So another cool piece, and I need to dig it up here if I can find it, was sent to me the other day, and this is out of Wichita Falls. Gosh sakes, I got to find it now. I sent it to my wife, and now I can't find it, but it was about a giant snake. And somebody had sent it to her, and there was some giant snake sneaking around. Oh, there it is, the giant snake of Wichita County, Texas. And so I'm going to read this to y'all because I think it's cool. Sounds like maybe there's a train coming, so y'all might get to hear the train. But this is on thehistoryoftexas.com and was written by Scott White, PhD. So I definitely want to give him credit. But here it is. In July of 1946, just a few miles away from Wichita Falls, a phenomenon appeared rivaling Bigfoot, or the Marfa Lights, a monster reptile that, according to eyewitness descriptions, was 40 feet long, was terrorizing the folks near Burke Burnett, Texas. Wichita Falls newspapers of the time, the Wichita Falls Record News and the Wichita Daily Times, featured the reports of various sightings of a giant snake in the area as major news for several weeks. So summer in North Texas can be brutal for kids. Yep, and here comes a train, so we may have to stop and listen as the train goes rolling through. Summer in North Texas can be brutal for kids without some distractions. Pete Mason and a few friends, including Buddy Warren and Twain Adams, love that name, kid's first name was Twain, were the creators of the monster. Pete and his friends most likely decided that it might be fun to make a prank that would maybe scare a passerby, but would be otherwise harmless. After finishing their chores each day, the boys got together to work on this project. They found all the materials they needed around the farm, using burlap sacks attached end to end and stuffed with tin cans and cottonseed, tied up with baling wire. The boys created a snake of large proportions. They attached a rope to one end, and the snake could be dragged around. After a few trial runs around, it was time to try it out. The boys had to wait until just the right opportunity. The snake made its first public appearance about 1 a.m. on a Saturday in front of the W.E. Milam family, whose car was stuck on a sandy road. It was dark and quiet on this country road. The boys prepared the siding by placing the snake on one side of the road, laying the rope in the sand of the roadbed, and waiting until a car appeared. It must have been a loose sandy road, for the family tried to drive down it. They became stuck. Of course, everyone piled out to help dig out the wheels. And then it happened. Pete and Buddy pulled the sack snake across the road a few yards from where the family car sat axle deep. The effect was more than they hoped. The snake was first sighted as it slithered across the Seymour Highway at Fillmore Street near what is now Lucy Park. The sight of this monstrous reptile crossing the open road just a few feet away caused an immediate reaction. Mrs. Milam screamed. The two children cried. The boys had a great laugh as they pulled the sack snake across the road and through the cornfields, leaving a wide track of loose soil. The Milams made it to a nearby house where they called for help. Two Texas Highway patrolmen, John Lowry and Charles Reeves, responded to the call. They were joined by Ben Gould, a local newspaper reporter, and Norman Derby, a candy salesman. 4 men searched an area 1 mile north and 3.5 miles east of Cashin School between Thornberry and Burke Burnett for about an hour, finding only the track of the snake. During the search, the group met 2 soldiers from Shepherd Field who reported they also saw the snake. Mr. Lowry reported that the stories were convincing. Those people were too excited to be telling anything but the truth. And I hear the train coming. It's going to get loud here in a minute, but that's okay. Y'all just hang on with me, because this is real and I'm doing this live, sitting on the front porch of some old buildings in Channing, Texas. There you go. I love that sound. I don't know why, trains just always fascinated me all the time, and we're probably gonna hear the train honk some more here in just a second. So y'all hang on. Don't leave me. They've actually, as I've waved, they've honked a little bit at me here and there. And there go the red blinking lights. Yeah, like I said, sorry, this is 100% live right now. First time I've ever tried it this way, so give me some feedback. But here we go. The train is coming. It's going to get super loud here in just a second. Or right now, actually. Well, there we go. We'll give him a wave, see if he gives us a toot. Nope, not yet. So that's actually a Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad train going by, hauling a bunch of, I guess, car haulers, for lack of better words. I don't know what to call it. But anyway, since the train engine is now by, I'll just go ahead and keep going. So anyway, Mr. Lowry reported that the stories were convincing. Those people were too excited to be telling anything but the truth. Milam was still pale, nervous, and excited when we talked to him. The snake was reportedly seen crawling across several more roads over the next few weeks, causing all sorts of excitement in the county. Mrs. Bessie Walkup, a nurse at the polio ward of Wichita General Hospital, reported seeing the snake in her neighborhood at Cooper's Church. James Hankins, a Wichita Falls truck driver, claimed to have seen the snake at the Santa Fe Trail marker on Seymour Road. There was about 10 miles between the two places. One man claimed it was more than 20 feet long with a red belly and a black back, and it reared up as high as a pickup window before making its exit to nearby grass. Other area residents reported seeing the creature that night as it moved over roads and through fields. One driver recounted how he had to slam on his brakes to avoid hitting the beast, and said it moved so fast there was no time to call the sheriff. Things escalated fairly quickly after the giant snake sighting. People reported catching a glimpse of the beast all around Wichita Falls area. One woman, she said she saw it near Cooper's Church. There were even reports of the snake seen several times in Oklahoma. Another woman reported coming across the reptile near Cashin School. She told police it stretched clear across the road with its tail up to one side and his head was up on the other, and it was as big around as a drainage pipe. The subsequent police search turned up nothing. Search parties were organized by local men during the following weeks. Local businessmen began to post rewards for the capture of the snake. J.B. Griffith, who operated an amusement park at Haven Park swimming pool, opened an escrow account with $1,000 for anyone who could deliver the snake alive. The reward was reduced to $500 if the snake was brought in dead. There were other conditions that had to be met to collect the reward, including that the snake had to be at least 20 feet long. The stories told by people who claimed to have witnessed an appearance of the reptile had begun to report the length of the snake as far up as 40 feet. A second requirement was that the snake had to be the one seen in the Wichita Falls area. That was to keep anyone from bringing a foreign snake into the area, and the reward was only good for a 2-week period. The county tax collector, Jim Robinson, was appointed oversight of the reward. Another reward was advertised by J.A. Rhodes, a taxi driver, offering $1,500. Then Norman Baggett, Foy Sandifer, and Ted Robb together offered $2,000, as did R. Ginshrek of Mankins, to anyone who could capture the giant snake and bring it in. The searches became larger and more elaborate. The radio technician for the police department took to the air to search for the demon. He reportedly flew over a 10-mile area at low altitude of 50 feet off the ground and even flew up and down the Red River, hoping to see the snake in the water. He assured the public that the snake had not crossed the river. Other planes from nearby airbase buzzed the treetops in search. The number of people on the ground posse was estimated by a local newspaper to be plenty of them. I love that. We have no idea how many people are searching, but there's plenty of them. Organized hunts were arranged, some based at the Army bivouac area near the Cashin School. One local man, Pershing Gellner, recalls riding horseback to look for the snake. He thought a riding height would give him an advantage of seeing the snake before anyone else. The trail was easy to follow at first. It went through a cornfield with stalks knocked down for a ways and then was lost when the corn ended and the Johnson grass began. One local man declared that he would bring his Jeep so that the search area might be difficult for horsemen or men on foot. The citizen army was armed with all manners of shooting irons as they combed the countryside. Armed soldiers from nearby Shepherd Air Force Base joined the hunt, and there was rumor that 2 of these men actually lassoed the reptile. However, this was just gossip and there was no truth in it. People became so leery of an encounter with the giant snake that they changed their routines. Children were not allowed to sleep on the porch in fear the reptile would drag them off. And even cotton production was affected when parents wouldn't let their kids go out to hoe or pick cotton in the fields. The snake was reported big enough to swallow a small child, so for a couple of weeks, children remained close to home. There was a brief boom in the promotion and sale of snake weapons. Good snake hunting dogs also ranked high on the list. 2 people, Carl Childs and Connie Watson, offered the services of their world-class snake hunting hound. According to the 2 owners, the dog needed only a whiff of the snake and then it was off. They swore this dog could find a snake provided the trail was less than 8 hours old. Carl and Connie said they would charge only $500. No one took them up on their offer though. It was always at night when the giant snake appeared because the boys also had farm chores to do during the daylight hours. This just cracks me up. So the reptile was stored in an old cellar of the Mason's house during the day. The cellar was a round room lined with seats for some reason, but it made a great place to store the snake. Stanley, the oldest Mason brother, was afraid his brothers and friends would be prosecuted and sent to jail for the giant snake prank. So one day he snuck the snake out of the cellar into the field where he burned it. Soon after, the county sheriff made a visit to the Masons' home and questioned the boys about the snake. Pete and the other boys held their breaths when the sheriff announced that he was going to search the cellar for the snake. When he returned to the house without finding anything, the boys were confused because they didn't know what Stanley had done. According to newspaper accounts, some of the perpetrators were eventually discovered. The truth was that one of the boys told the rest of them about the snake. The air base called off the search and everyone went back to their pre-giant snake lives. The boys thought it was all in fun, but they knew that if they were ever caught, they would be punished. For the rest of their lives, they were kind of looking over their shoulders, worrying that they might be sent to prison because of their hoax. The names of all the participants are still known only to a few, and most of those are over 80 years old now, at least when this was written in 2015. Their parents failed to see the humor at the time and passed on messages to their sons, daughters, nieces, and nephews as they grew up not to ever do anything like that, because they might end up doing time in jail for giant snake possession or something like that. Oh, it's these little stories in these little towns like that just crack me up, guys. There are all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's like the story of the elephant being buried in Wichita Falls. I mean, my gosh, there are just so many cool things. So a giant snake made out of burlap sacks and coffee cans caused a big county-wide tizzy for quite a while. So that's kind of fun stuff. And I know this podcast is a little shorter than normal, but I'm going to go ahead and call it good there because I am now walking back down Main Street of Channing, Texas, way out in the Panhandle. And so if y'all get an opportunity to stop here and swing through town, it won't take you but maybe 5 or 10 minutes to drive around and see all there is to see, but it's super cool. And if you see Frank and Bethany outside their house near the school, stop and say hi to their German Shepherd named Hey Hey. So there you go, folks. What else do you guys want to hear kind of weird and off the wall? What do you guys think of my live podcast? This one's a little different. We had the train come right through, and I just thought it was a little something fun, a little something different. But let me know. And of course, if you guys need a home loan in Texas or Oklahoma, look me up at themichaelmitchell.com, THE-michaelmitchell.com, and check me and Victory Home Loans out. We'd sure love to help you get a home of your own. There's even a couple for sale right here in Channing, Texas. So there you go. As always, remember, the stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. Y'all have a great week.